Going into week 11 of the college football season, we have to discuss who is tight end one of the 2025 NFL draft class. Is it Michigan's Colston Loveland? Is it Penn State's Tyler Warren or Bowling Green's Harold Fannin Jr.? We're going to have this discussion and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydays. And you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champion with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. And the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we bring you championship level content each and every single podcast, man. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day over here at Locked On NFL Draft. Today's show rundown. We're going to talk about who is tight end one, right? Because there's been a lot of different conversations. We've had Harold Fannin pop out of nowhere. We've seen a dynamic performance from Tyler Warren, the tight end at Penn State. But then we also have our guy, right, Colston Loveland. We're going to talk about who is tight end one. And then we're going to have the prospect spotlight. We're picking a prospect, putting them under the spotlight, breaking them down, talking about how dynamic they could potentially be. And then we're going to talk about underrated prospects overall. So we're getting into our bag. DP, let's start this conversation off with tight end one.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Guys, who is tight end one of the 2025 NFL Draft heading into week 11 of college football? And the players to watch is Keith named Colston Loveland out of Michigan, Tyler Warren out of Penn State, and Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. And it's a very difficult thing to navigate right now because Harold Fannin is leading the nation in receiving yards and I think receiving touchdowns for tight ends on the season. Right now, he's got almost a thousand, if not, yeah, about 900 and almost 1,000 yards receiving. 6 touchdowns on the season and everything. And Tyler Warren comes in at second with 606. Yards receiving, 4 receiving touchdowns. Colston Loveland is ranked 5th with 523 yards receiving and 4 receiving touchdowns, which is still impressive considering their quarterback situation is different. You know what I mean? Over at Michigan. I think when you look at it, man, coming into the season, Keith, it was Colston Loveland for me. Colston Loveland was tight end one. When you're 6'5", 6'6", 240. The alignment versatility, the route running, the athleticism, the ball skills, catch radius, all that stuff that's what you want in a tight end one, especially in today's NFL when you need guys that could be difference makers in the receiving game. But he also, playing at Michigan, one thing you have to do, you got to run block in Michigan. You're not going to be on the field. You're not going to be on the field especially when Jim Harbaugh was there. You got to be able to block, and he's able to do that, whether it's blocking defensive ends, climbing to the second level, picking off linebackers, or being a space and movement blocker to the perimeter on outside zone, toss sweeps type of plays and getting those safeties and those corners. But I look at Tyler Warren, and Tyler Warren 6'6", 240 is in his own right, athletic, alignment, versatile. I think they put up the graphic during the game against Ohio State last weekend. He plays everywhere. Slot receiver, outside receiver, H-back, tight end, center, quarterback. Like, he plays all over the place. And I had a Saints fan was like, man, we should draft him and basically make him the next Taysom Hill. I was like, no, don't do that. But I wouldn't mind him in that offense. And of course, Bowling Green's Harold Fannin Jr., Keith, just a guy he's got good athleticism. His two biggest tests: Penn State defense, Texas A&M defense. He dominated both defenses.
Both of them. Yep.
He dominated both of them. I don't really know who to label as tight end one right now, but I'm gonna probably say, even though Harold Fannin has the most yards right now, I'm going the way that the season has been going and the way things have shifted. I think Tyler Warren might have a leg up on Colston Loveland simply because of his usage, and he has a quarterback, and they're getting him the ball in a variety of ways. And I think we said it on the pod before. It reminds me of how Andy Reid uses Travis Kelce, like just different ways of getting him the ball in space. He's so fluid as a mover. This is a former high school quarterback, by the way, in Tyler Warren, who's only played tight end for 4 years. So the ceiling is high for him. I think Tyler Warren might have the leg up a little bit on Colston Loveland.
Yeah, DP, I'm gonna go the opposite way with that. I'm gonna just stick with, and honestly, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna just stick with, right? But I'm going with and going to stick with Colston Loveland, right? I think that unfortunately the situation at Michigan with their quarterback situation, DP. We talked about you better be able to run the football. Right now, all Michigan can do is run the football, right? So it's just we're not seeing a lot of Colston, and honestly, even what we're seeing from him, right, is due to a forced and concerted effort to just try to get somebody to football, right? Just that the game plan is just get the best player out of football, try to let him touch it 5-6 times. But that's even more difficult when you're talking about a tight end playing in the middle of the field, ability for explosive plays. But I just look at Colston Loveland's profile as far as how big he is, like you said, being 6'5", being 250, the movement, the ability to adjust to the football, the body control, all of those things. I just look at it and I'm like, man, that's some dangerous stuff, right? Like that's like he's probably you try to find comps, right? I don't think Robert Gronkowski is a good comp. I think Gronk was bigger, right? Bigger than him.
6'7", 260.
Yeah, I think I don't see George Kittle as necessarily a comp in a sense. I think George may have a little bit more wiggle, but I mean, and this is about to be another Hall of Fame name. But like Tony Gonzalez, right? Like Tony was a big mover, right? That can do some things. And I think Colston can do the same as far as like I think he can get in the slot. He can do H-back because he's just he's a sturdy guy. Yeah, he operates with good body control, right? In space. He's not one of those tight ends. Let's talk about like Jared Wiley from last year, right? TCU, a guy that I liked in a straight line, but I thought that when he had to move laterally, he started to stumble some, right? Like it wasn't good control. And I think with Colston, like for being the same size or similar size, right? He always has good body control, and that's something that I look for in tight ends. And I really like Colston Loveland, and that's why I say like you talking about just top 10, top 15 prospect. But I will say this though, on the back end of your Tyler Warren situation is that Tyler, I feel like he's just elevating himself, right? Like this one of those tight end classes where there's a number 1 tight end, but it doesn't mean that the number 2 isn't just 5 slots behind him and the number 3 2 slots behind that.
No, 100%. I think when I my comp, one of my comps for Colston, like I had 2. It was like a more physical and actual run blocking version of Mike Gesicki. For those who remember, he's a high level athlete mover. He just did not block well. Effort was never there. That's part of the issue. He didn't stay in Miami with the new coaching staff. They wanted to run the ball, and you got to block, and that wasn't one of his strengths. But also, I think about because we did a mock draft, which we'll end up breaking down here probably next week sometime. We did a mock draft over at Bleacher Report, and Colston Loveland landed with the Denver Broncos. And my reason is he could be Sean Payton's new Jimmy Graham. He also is a better blocker than Jimmy.
I thought you was DP. I thought you was about to take it back and go Shannon Sharp or something. I was like,
no, I'm not. No, God, no. I would never put that in there, do that. But you remember with Jimmy Graham and what he was able to do for Sean Payton and Drew Brees, be that big athletic basketball player at 6'6", 6'5" to 6'7", 240 plus pounds, and he could box guys out at the catch point. He could run routes. Like he was a guy that forced your defense to put a corner on him because you couldn't put a safety on him and you couldn't put a linebacker on him. Colston Loveland has that same type of ability, and I just think with Tyler Warren, I think he, like you said, he's elevating himself. And I think here's the thing I think that can make I guess you could say the eval for Colston Loveland for some scouts a little difficult. It is the usage. The usage isn't like very NFL-esque. It's a lot of, fake the chip, drop off, sell the run, leak out, things like that. It's not allowing him to truly run routes and be a actual tight end because they don't have an actual quarterback. While you look at Tyler Warren, he can do a lot of those things. And of course, same thing with Harold Fannin. He's my tight end 3 right now. and I think that's probably going to end up staying that way unless Jake Brenningstool takes that next step. But this is a great tight end class. The tight end one discussion is going to be fun to track all season, especially once we get to the combine, see who tests well, who blows it out of the water, who does what, and to see if any of these guys go to the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl.
Yep, with DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing. And next up is prospect spotlight, right? We're going to pick the prospect, put him under the spotlight, dissect this game, right, and talk about what are the future expectations of that prospect in the NFL. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Hey, Locked On NFL Draft fans, do you remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM? Well, they're back, and they have added an amazing new game mode that I need to tell you about. The game that has you step into the shoes of a football franchise GM and lead it to glory now has a new head coach career mode. So on top of getting to build your dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, and hiring a coaching staff, now you also get to call offensive plays during the games. Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. So play on the go as you want to and when you want to. And here's a special offer for Locked On fans. Use the promo code Locked On NFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure you get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Is guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Prospect spotlight heading into week 11 of the college football season. Keith, we've talked about the offensive tackle class, and not for good reasons, multiple times on this pod, right?
Yeah.
But I have to go and talk about it from a positive standpoint, but I'm going to Clemson's right tackle, Blake Miller. He is having a great season so far this season. 6'6", 315, has not given up a sack, and he's faced defensive lines. Listen, like he pitched a shutout. He only gave up a single pressure against Georgia. No sacks, no QB hits allowed. NC State's D-line, he shut them down. Against Stanford, Florida State's D-line, no sacks, no QB. He's only allowed 1 QB hit all season, and that was against North Carolina State. So Cade Klubnik, when he's been under pressure, it really hasn't been because of Blake Miller. Blake Miller has played great all season against a talented front against Louisville last week. 1 pressure, 1 hurry allowed, no QB hit, no sacks. Like he has only allowed 8 total pressures on the season. And 7 hurries on the season. And we're heading into week 11. Again, 6'6", 315, and I'm happy to see this jump from him, Keith, because he's athletic. That was a part of his background. He was always an athletic guy. I wasn't a fan of Garrett Riley, the OC, making them do, like, especially in the run game, the skip pull. I hate that technique, because it really delays guys, especially long leg guys, their momentum. It's like crossing your feet. No, just let them walk.
And you could tell some of them start thinking too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's because it's just not a natural move. Like, how many people are just skipping nowadays, right?
Right. Especially when you're 300 plus pounds. Like, I don't think any 300 pound needs to be skipping anywhere. You know what I mean? So I look at Blake Miller, and he's got a test this week coming up. Again, another really talented test against Virginia Tech. Antoine Powell-Ryland, that we've talked about numerous times in this pod, one of the better edge rushers and one of the more productive guys this season. Blake Miller has a chance. And that scout texted me because he actually listened to the pod where we talked about the offensive tackle class about a week or two ago. And he said, listen, Blake Miller has a chance to go round 1. And I was like, okay, I got to get eyes on him. And then I watched him and I'm like, okay, yeah, he's playing much better than he did last year. He's being technically, he was always good in the run game. That was never really a problem for him. He's physical. He wants to move guys and move bodies, but it's the pass protection game where I see him being more technically refined. He's playing to his athleticism. He's playing like a guy that's not thinking a lot. He's just playing ball. And when I look at him, I say, okay, if there's anybody that can climb himself into round 1 and be that round 1 be a round 1 offensive tackle, he's playing outstanding ball right now. And I want to show him some love. If he shuts, I need Virginia Tech to put Antoine. I know you like to find the mismatches on the O-line. I get it. I feel it. I need Antoine Power-Rowland versus Blake Miller at least 5 to 6 times in this game on Saturday. I need that matchup because if he can shut down that guy who's been dominant all season, strap the rocket to his back, and we're going to start seeing them fly up the draft boards. And people are going to have to start talking about Blake Miller as one of the best tackles in this class.
Yeah, DP, I watched Blake Miller a couple weeks ago, and that was my first time getting eyes on him because I didn't get an opportunity to get to him during the summer, I don't believe, or I watched him very sparingly, right? And watching him a couple weeks ago, I was like, hey, this guy has some talent, right? Like, looks like a starting right tackle. And I think when we talk about the momentum that's built for Connor Williams, the offensive tackle from Texas, right? And like, hey, this guy can slide in the first round. I think it can be the same for Blake Miller. When I initially watched him, I was talking about a couple weeks ago, I had a kind of late 2-ish grade on him, right? And I think it goes back to our point with this offensive tackle class is that's probably the grade that a lot of offensive tackles going to end up with. But because that's the case, second round means first round, right? This is we're gonna have to kind of speak in code a little bit, right? Or you're gonna have to dissect that, like, hey, this guy's a second round. Okay, that means he's a top 25 prospect, right? And so I agree with you on a lot what you like to say with Blake. I didn't have the opportunity to kind of compare him to last year to see how much he improved, right? I just know that from what I've seen this year, right? I was like, nah, this guy has some talent and he has the arm length, the movement skills, all of those type of things to be able to translate. DP, one guy coming off one of the biggest performances, right? And it's back to this edge rusher class that we talk about. Just putting Abdul Carter under the spotlight, right? And he seems like he's turning it on, right? And it's been showing more consistent. It was kind of blank like the first 3-4 games, right? But the momentum is picking up and it's developing. And it's like, okay, how high can this guy go? And I think we're back at that conversation once again, right? Is that, hey, could this be a top 7, top 8 pick? Could it be a top 5 pick, right? And I think that there's a lot of quarterback needy teams. So I think that may prevent him if some teams decide to move up and things like that. And right now, I think the Patriots sit at the number 1 overall slot per Tankathon, I believe. And I don't know if the Patriots are going to take a edge rusher at number 1, right? So not there, but then immediately after that is just a bunch of quarterback needy teams. So I think he could be a top 10-ish. And you look at the defenders, right? It may, and this is excluding Travis Hunter, right? But it may go Mason Graham, Will Johnson, Abdul Carter, right? As far as defenders in the draft.
No, 100%. I mean, and I know some people like, well, if he's playing the guard that was playing left tackle, you face who you face. And he torched Donovan Jackson multiple times. I mean,
he torched other people this season too, right? And so it wasn't just that.
Actual left tackles. Like he acted like, and the speed, the burst, the explosiveness is there. I forget I forget which game it was, but I was watching the tape earlier this week, or late over the weekend, and it was a rep he had where he was rushing against the right tackle. And he ghost punched him into the dip and bend. And I was just like, that tackle did not get hands on him at all. Like when he threw the ghost punch, the tackle reacted. And when he dipped, his ability to drop his weight, he's supposed to say 253. For his ability to drop his weight and get as low, it was very Von Miller-esque watching it because I was just like, oh yeah, he sunk his hips on that rep. And so I think for him, man, like you said, Keith, Mason Graham, Will Johnson, we'll see what happens with Travis Hunter. These teams that need an edge rusher, he might be the number 1 guy off the board right now. And it's simply because the main thing you're going to have to do is figure out what to do with him on rundowns. Like, how comfortable are you with him setting the edge? Is he more of a guy that, hey, if you're running the even front defensive front, do I have him as a stand-up edge rather than 4-point stance, 3-point stance? That way he's already in a combat position to defend against the run. He can get his hands fitted quickly. He can set the edge. He's already in position, whether it's against a tackle on the strong side, tight end on the strong side, or just against a tackle. He can already get his hands out there. He's quick, get his hands out there, set the edge, and be ready, and he'll already maintain outside leverage. If not, then maybe you play him as an off-ball backer, similar like we talked about with Micah Parsons and Jalen Walker, and Baron Browning, his career with the Denver Broncos. It's multiple opportunities there to use him in different ways. But I definitely think his stock is started slow, but man, he's picked it up. And I mean, just looking at it right now, he's at on the overall 18% pass rush win rate, but on true dropback sets, his pass rush win rate jumps to 27%. This guy is getting after the quarterback, and that's the name of the game right now.
100% with DP. Let's wrap this thing up with the segment, man. Underrated prospects, something I'm excited to get into. Talk about some of those guys that's, you can say, flying under the radar. Just guys that people aren't really talking about, right, in the draft community. They have that opportunity to really elevate themselves. So DP, let's keep this thing going. Let's keep this thing flowing, man. And we're going to talk about underrated prospects coming up.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch or that urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you placed your bets. All you need to do is just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Keith, underrated prospects. I got to go to South Carolina. We talk about that defensive line so much, man. I got to go to their secondary. And this is a guy, I'm going to say this, I haven't seen anybody similar to Kyle Hamilton until now. Nick Emmanwori, 6'3", almost 230 pounds, and that similar versatility that we saw with Kyle Hamilton at Notre Dame, where in the box, in the slot, free safety, too high. It didn't matter that he did whatever you needed him to do. Nick Emmanwori does the same exact stuff. Alignment snap counts on the season: 254 snaps as the box safety, 121 snaps at free, 111 snaps in the slot. He's so versatile. And I believe he has, like, in terms of passer rating when in coverage, like it's crazy how low it is right now. 16.8. He's allowing 16.8. That's his passer rating when targeted in coverage. And he's been so good this season. I think, what was it, Marcel Reed last week against Texas A&M? I think he targeted him 4 times. Only one of those targets were caught. Like, this is a guy that, when you look at, again, the tight ends are the biggest mismatches in the NFL. He's got the athleticism, the arm length, the size, and the skill set and ability to be a tight end eraser. I remember, kind of throwback name for some people, Obi Melanfanu coming out of UConn. They called him the tight end eraser. He never was able to really get his footing. I think he dealt with injuries early on, stuff like that in his career. I'm telling you right now, man, Nick Emmanwori is an underrated prospect that I expect he might be at the Senior Bowl. You know what I mean? When we get there in Mobile, this dude's one of the best defenders in college football in the secondary. We just talked about the safety class. Nobody is really talking about the safeties. This guy needs to be talked about.
Yeah, DP, I like that name call because he's somebody, I think, and this is just how it goes, right? If South Carolina would have won more games. I think he would have gotten more attention. But you're talking about a player that makes splash plays, that has playmaking ability. Nick is definitely one of those players. And I can't remember if he brought his name up. I think he did. Either me or you brought
Yeah.
his name up when we was listing out the safeties for guys to look at. It's funny you went safeties because I was going with one also. But I'm gonna bring up two names. One, Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, right? Like that's a guy that people have to continue to look out for it for as far as him elevating his draft stock and where does he come, because he's another long, kind of rangy safety, right? That can play, can play off the ball, but he can also walk into the box and do some different things, and especially where we at with the NFL, being able to stop the run. But a guy that DP, I don't think anybody's discussing and just has true playmaker ability is Billy Bowman at Oklahoma, right?
Mhm.
And we talk about him, from time to time, but we know his size is an issue, right? He's listed at 5'10", 200, but this guy, he may be 5'9" and a half, 195, right? And it's just, people look at size, right? But when you're talking about just a natural football player, instinctive, I think he play punt return, do kick return. I think he's a guy that if you get him in the third round, DP, he's gonna be one of those players. And I know because like maybe I'm Buda Baker, right? I'm trying to find people that's
Mm.
like similar to his size that you like,
Yeah.
man, that dude could just flat out ball at the end of the day, right? And Billy Bowman is just one of those players that can, like we looked at, remember Cam Kinchins, and I think Billy Bowman is a better athlete than Cam Kinchins.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
remember Cam Kinchins from last year, and I think we called it on here, right? We said two things. Heading into the Senior Bowl was like, this might be a question mark from him because his athleticism, I don't think, is going to play well in an environment like the Senior Bowl, right? And he
Mhm.
didn't play well. His draft stock dropped, right? But then we also called it after he got drafted and was like, hey, look, when this guy gets drafted and it's just about football again, expect him to make plays. And in that Los Angeles Rams versus Seattle Seahawks, right, had 102 interception return for a touchdown because the guy just understands how to play football. And I feel the same
Mhm.
way about Billy Bowman is that size is going to probably make him drop, but it's also going to allow for him to go to a spot and thrive. And then fans are going to be a couple years from now like, man, we might have one of the best young defenders in like, just defensive backs in the NFL.
No, I'm a big fan of Billy Bowman. I like the Buda Baker call out because like he plays similar with that type of energy. You know what I mean? When
Mhm.
you see Buda Baker, like I'll never forget watching him. Like Buda Baker's like 5'10", 195, and
Yeah.
he'll run head on with George
Yep.
Kittle, like no fear at all. And it's like, and make the open field tackle. That's the stuff that you know what I mean. Running backs, he runs the alley and makes big hits. And I'm like, how does your body hold up when you're smaller than these? You're giving up 25 pounds a lot of times to these guys. And Billy Bowman plays with that same type of ability. Same way with Buda Baker. He could walk down into the nickel, play man-to-man against some receivers, against tight ends, but also play in the back end, plus one in the run game. Billy Bowman is, like, again, I feel like nobody is scouting safeties. And, like, just feel like this class is not being talked about. But
Yep.
Billy Bowman is one of the better just defensive backs in this class. Versatile, love his game. He's going to make some NFL team happy. You think about the Chauncey Gardner-Johnsons. We watched it on Monday Night Football this week. Was it Tyke Smith with the forced fumble against Travis Kelce on the big hit, and how he's kind of growing and elevating in that Todd Bowles defense for the Buccaneers. Like Antoine
I
Winfield
was just about to
Jr.
say Antoine Winfield is he's probably a prime candidate of don't just look at the size, because he was in that
Yes.
same class with Grant Delpit, Xavier McKinney, even Xavier McKinney, right?
Yeah.
Because Xavier McKinney is not a very big safety, and he didn't run a fast 40, but I think he's having a career year right now with
Playmaker,
the Green
man.
Bay Packers, already with 6 interceptions.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just definitely just want to, you gotta watch, like, instincts are the number one thing with safety, right? Because I even remember there was times when like guys like Ashton Davis, right, was like mentioned as like, nah, they're going to be better than Antoine Winfield Jr. in that same draft class because they were faster and they were taller, right? Well, that's
Yeah.
not the whole conversation when it comes, honestly, to playing football, period. But when it
Right.
comes to this, the safety class, so I'm definitely in agreement with that. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez, and you can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host. We go to war with it every single day, man. Mr. Damian Parson, and you can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we like to say, man, y'all can follow us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. You get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Guys, on tomorrow's show, we're talking about the best potential landing spots for Georgia quarterback Carson Beck. So come and join the conversation.
Definitely come.
Yeah, please come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.